Thank you for joining us. My name is Daniel Rosales. I am the Director of Technical Services for Telguard. If you're not familiar with Telguard, you should be. We are one of the leading providers of communication services for the security and fire industry. So we manufacture cellular communicators for the residential, commercial, and commercial fire space. We've been in the industry since the late 80s, and like anybody that's been around for that long, we've been through a couple of different things. We've been through different sunsets. We've been through technology changes. We've been through a lot of different things that have impacted the industry as a whole. So the sunset strategy, plain and simple, is about understanding, planning, and eventually acting on it. So we broke it down into 5 different steps. Now that it's a third sunset that we're going through, we're going to go ahead and let you in on some of the things that other dealers are doing and some of these strategies that have been proven to be effective and some of the things that perhaps haven't been as effective. Step 1 is going to be understanding the events. What is going to happen? What options do you have in dealing with those events? Step 2 is understanding yourself, your labor capacity, understanding what population you're dealing with. Step 3 is now you're planning to add value, but it's something that we don't often think about enough. And it's something that should be at the forefront when we're strategizing on a sunset plan. Step 4 is the actual replacement strategy. How am I tackling this? Who am I contacting first? How many units do I need to do a month to be able to get to my goal? That's all part of the strategy. Step 5, the final step, is acting on that plan. Acting doesn't mean everything is going to go according to plan, because nothing will. It's really about knowing how to react to things and understanding that, hey, it's great if everything went according to plan, but I have to be ready to adapt. So let's start with step 1. We know that AT&T has a sunset, a publicized sunset, February 22nd, 2022. We know that Verizon has a CDMA sunset that happens December 31st, 2022. So when you look at these statements at face value, you're thinking, okay, I am good. I am covered until February 22nd, 2022. I don't have to touch a thing. Everything's going to work great. That's not quite the case. We've learned from our experiences in 2008, 2016 with the previous sunsets that the dates that are provided, they are not the start of that sunset race. That's the finish line. What it means to us is we need to understand that it's not going to be a completely, it's not going to be a switch that is going to completely shut off when these dates happen. You're going to see frequency farming happening. You're going to see bandwidth changes happening in the dates leading up to the sunsets. So what does frequency farming mean? You can think of it as having different buckets available to you. If the 3G technology has 2 buckets and the LTE technology has 2 buckets today, maybe tomorrow we're going to take one of those buckets away from 3G because what? Because 3G is going away. So let's go ahead and repurpose those buckets for LTE, right? So now, if you still have a good population of 3G units, they're competing for that tower. They're competing for that bandwidth. What's going to happen is that at the end of it all, when the sunset hits, the last bucket that was allocated to 3G, to CDMA, is going to go away. And all you're left with is LTE and 5G technology and whatever else that they're working on. So when it comes to frequency farming, we're looking at radios that were perhaps used in a specific frequency that was shared by LTE, and the carriers decide let's go ahead and move it over to LTE, exclusive to LTE, because 3G is such a small population by now that let's go ahead and favor our LTE customers. So the moral of the story here on step 1 is do not wait until the last second. Now, what options do you actually have? One of the things to keep in mind, and this is really regardless of vendors, you want to take a look at what options you have that are going to make your life easier, right? Just to give you an example, with Telguard, we put together a TG7 upgrade board. And what it is essentially a way to minimize your cost, minimize your labor by simply replacing the one component that is going to be different. You're basically taking the circuit board that has a 3G radio, taking it out and replacing it with a circuit board that has an LTE radio. That's basically what it is. All the components, all the wiring, everything remains the same. It's a matter of unplugging those terminal blocks and plugging them into the new terminal, into the terminals of the new PCB. Now, why is it that I would want to look at that over perhaps getting a brand new radio, brand new unit, brand new system, even perhaps from a different vendor. You want to look at this option because number one, you're minimizing hardware cost, right? So whenever we sell you something like a TG7FS, for instance, a Telguard unit for commercial fire, we're not just selling you the technology. We're not just selling you the circuit board. We're selling you the enclosure, the chassis, the antenna connectors, and everything else that goes along with it, the adapters, the battery connectors. All of that costs money. So in order for you to replace one for one, you're going to have to purchase an enclosure that perhaps if you already had a TG7FS, just happens to be older technology, you don't need to replace the chassis. You're saving money by going with an upgrade board. You're minimizing labor costs because why? If you have a fire application, again, going back to the fire application, you already have conduits running into that enclosure. And you understand what a pain in the neck it could be to try to replace a chassis. Take it out, put a new one in. It's a heck of a lot easier to unplug the connections that already run through the conduit, replace the board, and plug those back into the board. And there's some intangibles as well. The fact that you're going from a 3G Telguard unit to an LTE Telguard unit means you're keeping the account history the same. We do have an option by which you simply swap the serial number, which means that whatever signal history you have with that unit, whatever calls you made into tech support and notes we may have put in there for you, you're keeping that history within that subscriber, even though you're changing radius, you're changing technologies. It's also an opportunity to change carriers. If you've been with Telguard, like many of our customers for a long time, then you understand that we first started with AT&T primarily. So it could be an opportunity that you started with a 3G AT&T unit, and now you understand that Verizon perhaps has better coverage. By replacing the board, you have an opportunity to switch carriers as well, because the upgrade board can be chosen in AT&T or Verizon. At the end of the day, what we want to do is make sure you take advantage of cost-saving opportunities. Buying an upgrade board versus buying an entire system, cost-saving opportunity. Not only that, but you also want to look at your vendors, talk to your distributors, and understand what cost-saving opportunities you have. Just to give you an example, again, within Telguard, running this quarter, we actually have a sale on TG1 Express devices. TG1 Express devices, if you're in the residential space and you know you're going to have to replace at least 4 units, go ahead and buy the 4 at once. Buy them in bulk. Why? Because Telguard has a sale where you buy 3, you get the 4th free. That's a savings that you know it's going to happen, whether it happens today, whether it happens next week or next month. You know you're going to have to replace 4 units. Might as well buy in bulk while the sale's going on and take advantage of it. Again, take advantage of any cost-saving opportunities as they come. Step 2, you got to understand your labor capacity. We are all in it to make money. And I know it sounds very frivolous, but that's what we're in it for. We want to make money. Yes, we want to make sure we provide quality service and everything else, but we want to make sure that we're providing a quality service that we're collecting money from. In order to do that, we want to make sure we grow as a business. We don't want to become stagnant with just 1,000 customers or 100 customers or whatever the number may be. We want to make sure that 100 customers becomes 101 by tomorrow, becomes 102 the day after, and so on. So what we want to make sure is take a look internally, take a look at our capacity and understand how much work can we handle so that we don't interfere with our ongoing business, so that I don't take somebody away from installing brand new units to send them out to simply replace a product. So it's more than just scheduling 1 hour to do the actual change out. There's more office work that needs to happen ahead of it. So understand what you're dealing with, what you can handle, and understand how many units you need to replace. And again, it goes back to talking to your vendors. Whether you're dealing with Telguard or anybody else out there, make sure you talk to your vendors, figure out ways to get your reports, accurate reports with as much information as possible. It's a lot easier to plan and strategize once you have concrete numbers. Reports will change. The features of set reports are going to change from vendor to vendor. So if there's something that you don't find within a specific vendor, and it's the same thing that I encourage all of my customers, talk to us. If it's something that Telguard.com doesn't provide you, there may be a way that we can customize something for you to make your life easier. At the end of the day, we want to make sure that you tackle this as accurately, as precisely, and as easily as possible. And if running an extra report makes up your day, Let's do it. Let's get to work together. Contact your vendors and get those reports. Step 3 is plan to add perceived value. So what is perceived value? Perceived value is not how much a unit costs. It's how much it costs to you. One of the things that we want to understand from our perspective is that the longer that a customer has had with a specific radio, the bigger the perceived value for that radio. So if I sell you a 3G unit in 2016, and I'm telling you, I'm calling you now in 2020 to tell you I'm going to replace it, I need to replace it, I've given you four years with that unit. What if I sold you that unit last year, 2019, and I'm calling you today? I've given you 1 year for that unit. That is not something you're going to be very happy about. So we need to make sure that we understand that the call we're about to make is not one that, generally speaking, your customers are going to be extremely happy about. So we need to make sure that we add more value to the call. What are we offering? Hey, well, we're there to replace this product. We can add system inspections. Hey, well, we're there. There's this new feature that Telguard is offering, Home Control Flex. We can add remote arming. It's free for the first 3 months, so why not try it? No one wants to spend more money for a system that has been working, right? So provide extra value, but always remember, upsell with empathy. Some examples of things you can do: complimentary battery checks, system checks, maybe pair up with a scheduled inspection to avoid the extra visit, new yard signs, window clings, things that on a residential space means a lot to the customers. So things that I just think what you can offer, throw in to be able to add that value. As far as replacement strategy, how many units do you need to replace a month? This is where that report really comes in handy. So you talk to your vendor, you got the report. Now, what do you do with it? Well, you figure out how many units you need to be able to convert a month to meet your goal, right? So just thinking about today, if I have 80 units, 40 AT&T, 40 Verizon, that means that really I have 17 months until each sunset, until the beginning of each month. 17 months to AT&T and 27 months for the Verizon sunset. Now, I want to make sure I'm a little cautious, so I'm going to give myself an extra 2 months. So I'm going to go with 15 months and 25 months. So what do I have? I have 40 AT&T units, and I have 15 months to do it. That means I'm going to have to do at least 3 units a month. I'm going to have to replace 3 units a month to get to my goal of killing them all, getting them out of there by the time the sunset hits. Same thing for Verizon. We have 40 units, but we have 25 months. We have 10 extra months. So now I have to do only 2 Verizon units a month. So this is going to be a goal that you're going to give yourself each month: 3 AT&T units and 2 Verizon units. Exceeding it, great. Falling short means you reassess the next month to understand what you can do better, or how much more time you need to devote to that particular effort. Who do I contact first? So again, it goes back to that report. That vendor report is very important. The concept of perceived value is going to be at the forefront every single time. So we want to make sure you give your customer as much time with that product as possible. So when you have a report that has some sort of activation date, it'll give you the opportunity to sort by activation date, and it'll give you the option to reach out to those customers who have the oldest activation date first. So that when you get to 2021, you get to the end of 2021, now you're reaching out to the customers that perhaps you sold a unit to in 2018, whereas today you're reaching out to someone that you sold a unit to in 2016. So the value, the perceived value remains as you keep reaching out and getting customers converted. Step 5, and I put this very much at the forefront, it is not going to go according to plan. You can plan to change out 3 AT&T units and 2 Verizons every month. It is not going to go that way. So you always have to reassess and adapt. Those reports that I mentioned, make sure you have access to run them every month or at least every quarter. Make sure you understand what your population is as you keep tackling these calls. If calling 40 people in 1 month is not yielding your 5 conversions, well, next month we have to reassess and figure out, maybe we have to call 50 people instead. Maybe we have to do email and call. It's always about reassessing and adapting to customer response. It's always a good rule of thumb to understand that the first couple of months, it's going to be a trial run. Really understanding what works, what doesn't work, and what approach to take. Particularly, if you have a customer base that's very diverse. Some of them may not be quite as responsive to emails. May only check their emails once a month, once in a blue moon. May disregard emails so they don't know where they're coming from. So may you switch to phone calls. Communication may shift. So you want to make sure that every single month you're reassessing, understanding your goal, and adjusting your numbers. If you haven't hit your goal for the first 4 months, that three AT&T and two Verizon requirement may switch to three AT&T and three Verizon, or four AT&T for the remainder of the months, because you haven't been able to get them yet. So give yourself enough time to also assess every single month. Another intangible is that you have to adapt to a changing environment. One of the things that we have going on right now, for example, is the unfortunate situation that's happening in the south of Texas and Louisiana. There's a natural disaster happening. There's a hurricane that is destroying a lot of land and is destroying a lot of towers. So what do you think is going to happen for a lot of these customers that are using 3G or CDMA systems? They're using towers that could still transmit 3G and CDMA signals. What is going to happen when a natural disaster hits and those towers get knocked down? If I'm AT&T and I'm Verizon and I know I was planning on that conversion to begin with, I might as well go ahead and bring up new towers with LTE technology and move on to the next phase of my conversion. So something like what's happening today would impact your strategy, because now instead of catering to perhaps my northern Texas folks, I'm going to go ahead and get to my southern Texas clients and try to reach out to them first and say, hey, your units are, they're going away. They're 3G. There's a very good chance that they're not coming back. Let's go ahead and replace them when we get a chance. Let's go ahead and deactivate them for the time being and do what you need to do. So the reactionary path, it's not just based on customer response. It's also based on a changing environment. So at the end of the day, one of the things that we want to make sure that you understand is that there is no 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is what you do and you'll be successful. It's really about understanding that these are some of the things that we've tried, that we've seen people try, and most of them have been successful adapting it to their own way of doing business.